welcome to the another episode of CyberGeek podcast. In this episode, we'll be talking about data protection and security. So for this, we have a very special guest over here, and to be more make it more interesting, this is our first collaboration video over here itself. So making the way, we got Omar Masri over here, and let's hear it from Omar. What does he do, and from where he is from?
Thanks, Siddharth. Thank you for having me. Hello to everyone. Happy New Year. So my name is Omar Masri. I'm the CEO of Mamori.io, which is a cybersecurity software company that sells an all-in-one software solution. My background is I've been in the software industry since before 2000. I'm from the US, and I moved out to Australia back in the late 90s and became part of Quest, built a lot of software. And then when Quest got bought out by Dell, I was part of the corporate dev and became a lot of venture capital work. And so I've been basically around all sides of the software industry. And on the database side, particularly around database security, and now just in overall general security. So thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, Omar. And speaking of that, so this one's the first question is the very generic question, which I do ask with all my guests. So this will be like this question is like, what is cybersecurity, and how would you describe it in your own words?
Yeah, so I typically talk at a business user level because of the
Mm-hmm.
executives in cybersecurity. They ask the question, what is this stuff, right? So at a non-technical level, really security is attacks, like all security is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Home security is attacks. So if crooks didn't exist, if there were no
Mm-hmm.
thieves, then we wouldn't be talking about this. So in the simplest thing, cybersecurity is just a way for you to protect your assets. And there's only 5 types of assets that exist on the planet, right? You have your databases, you
Mm-hmm.
have your servers, so Linux or Windows, right? Pretty much it. Then you have your web applications, right? Um, and then you have your file shares, right? And then you have your buckets. I mean, that's pretty much it, right?
Uh,
So how you protect those from hackers and for your business, that's what cybersecurity really is about. And it's been a challenge for the past 40 years since personal networks, office networks were invented. People have been trying to hack stuff. So that's what it is.
all right, that's pretty interesting. And with this one, like every time I do get like some of the different answers. So this it's like there's no particular set definition of what exactly the cybersecurity is. So I just want to know what is according to their point of view. What is cybersecurity from the guest point of view? All right. So let's get ahead with the topic itself. So what are the fundamental principles driving the importance of data privacy, protection, and security? And how do they work together to safeguard our information in this digital age? As you can see, it's like this time it's currently it's entirely based on digital age itself. So how would you define these things?
Yeah. So in theory, cybersecurity is kind of simple. So you have um, agencies, government agencies, or global agencies, sorry, and they define standards, right?
All right.
So you have like your PDPA, your HIPAA standards, your how you store financial data standards, and your encryption standards. There's all these standards, ISO 27001, your access standards, etc.
Yeah.
And there's heaps of documentation about what one should do. And these standards are kind of vague, right? They're very loosely defined on what you should do. So they don't actually get into very technical details, just sort of these are the standards for you to comply. And people have been auditing businesses according to these standards for decades, right?
Mhm.
Now, on top of that, then you have agencies.
Mhm.
You have cybersecurity agencies for every country's got their own. If you're in the U.S., there's a bunch of agencies that recommend. And now they
Mhm.
start recommending what you should be doing. Hey, as a
Mhm.
business, they offer you recommendations. So Australia's got like the 8 essentials, and if you're in Thailand, they have another essentials. If you're in India, you have another set of essentials. But they pretty much say the same thing, right?
Mhm.
Um, and that's what kind of builds up. So you kind of mentioned at the start three things, right? So you have your access management,
Mhm.
right, which is how people get access to things, and then you have your data privacy, right, which is how you protect actual data. Um, and then you have, I guess, your protection of your other infrastructure that's kind of not database. So
Mhm.
and how they work together is actually pretty simple in theory.
Mhm.
Now to protect it, so there's actually 16 things that if you like if you read all those recommendations and you read all the policies and you put it all together, it boils down to 16 things. There's 8 basic security things that every business should kind of have, and then you have 8 kind of access management and data security things that you got to do. And most businesses maybe do, 5 of the 16, right? So
Okay.
and this is where or half, there's if you talk to any auditor who does audits, and you ask them, hey, how many of your clients fully do everything, and they will say none. It's like it's just cost prohibitive, right? It is just too expensive
Mhm.
to actually implement everything. And that's what the actual problem is with the security right now. The issue with cybersecurity isn't that hackers are super smart, or they're using super technology to break into stuff, or using new things to break
Mhm.
into things, or they're actually using old techniques, but they're just finding the things that you didn't buy, right?
Okay.
They're finding the 3 things out of the 16 that you didn't implement, right?
Okay.
Um, and that's all they got to do. That's what hackers do. They just find the gaps, right? They're like
Mhm.
water. They will find the gaps in your organization, and then you'll get hacked. So this is why, no matter how big the Australian organization is, they still get hacked because they still have gaps. And it doesn't matter. I'm sure wherever country you're from, you still get hacked. So the
Mhm.
question is, how do you know you have everything? How do you know you're actually secure? That's really the question,
Okay.
right? When is enough enough, right?
Well, I guess we can go for like when you cover each and every aspect, you try to mitigate them, and when you try to eliminate them, we can try to stop as much as we can. But it's like there is no replacement to human stupidity or human error, as there is a one unsaid thing, unsaid rules actually. Not unsaid rules, we can say it's like one unsaid line, which is like many of the people know. There's no replacement for the human stupidity. So it's like because of us, we make some or the other errors during our work time or some or the other time, which costs up our organization or which costs up our privacy or and our data privacy itself.
Well, that's right. So the this is a difficult business question, actually. So, because the business owners in the end are the ones that pay for the
Yeah.
technology and the software, right? And I'm going to kind of flip the problem because it's very similar. Humanity actually has very similar problems across all spectrums, right? So I'll give you an example: pollution, the
All right.
plastic bottle, right?
Uh,
The world makes it like it's our fault, me, the consumer, right? It's
mhm,
my problem. I'm the one that has to go and take care and use the paper bag and
mhm,
put the plastic bottle in the bin correctly. But really, is it doesn't matter how many people are still making the plastic bottle. The really it's the companies. It's the people selling the drinks. That's the problem because they sell
mhm,
stuff in plastic, right? If you really want to solve the problem, it's the people selling. So people always blame the IT people working at businesses for implementing bad security, but I flipped the problem. It's the vendors that sell the tools that's the problem. And here's the reason why, right? They sell it in pieces,
mhm,
right? They don't sell you. No vendor will say, hey, you want to protect your ransomware? Here is a ransomware protection 100% that's going to kind of solve your business problem,
yeah.
all aspects. No, 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 no. What they sell you is they sell you 2FA. And then another company sells you intrusion detection. Another company sells you, your PAM solution. Another one sells you. So you have all these things, and then it's the onus on the business person, the one with the least expertise in security, that has to somehow figure out what to buy and put it all together. So this is what the problem with security is. It's not that it's difficult, it's that it's packaged wrong, right? And this is what we're doing at Mamori. It's just trying to we have one solution that has all the pieces, and you can use all of it, or you can use the ones you're missing. Um, because really, that's I've looked at this problem from a business end, not a technical end. Is
Mm-hmm.
hey, if I'm a business owner, what do I need in my business so that I know I've at least I've done everything the government says I should
Mm-hmm.
do. So if an auditor does come, they'll say, "Wow, you're the first person on the planet that's actually done all 16 things." It's like no one else has done it.
So it's like a complete package, a one-stop shop to everything.
Yeah, that's right. So it's got your PAM, your DAM, it's got everything. Because so if you notice what most businesses do,
Mm-hmm.
is they will only buy what they can afford, right? Because these tools are expensive. I mean, you buy
Actually,
Imperva, you buy CyberArk, you buy Thycotic. No matter what you buy, you're spending a couple $1 million a year.
seriously.
But then they still get hacked because you can't afford SailPoint, right? Because you already your budget. So now it's almost like you have all these tools, but then without SailPoint, without the automation,
Mm.
then you're doing things manually, so you have a gap, right? Um, so this is the problem that we're trying to solve, which is making it possible for people to actually implement best practice, and that's really the thing. Yeah.
All right. So getting up ahead with the next question would be, I would go with like, what are the policies according to you? How would you define them?
The policies that you're trying to cover, yeah. So
Yeah.
the main policies are your the key one, the one that people usually forget, right,
Mm-hmm.
is your ISO 27001, the
Mm-hmm.
automation, right? So let's bring up a list here. So really, in that policy, what that covers, that's your access management,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really about five um, processes in your business, right? When someone joins your organization, when someone leaves the organization, when if you have an account that's been inactive, when you
Mm-hmm.
add a new piece of infrastructure, or you have like consultants, they
Mm-hmm.
come and work with you and then they leave, or you hire a consultant like Accenture or a large
Mm-hmm.
services firm, and they just have people. You have a contract with them, and they just have people rolling in and out of your organization. How do you manage all that movement, right? And that's what the ISO 27001, A9 is supposed to kind of help you manage, right? And it's critical that people automate it. So that's the key policy. That's where everything begins. If you don't have that, that's the first thing I would check in an audit. If you don't automate that, if you're still using paper and pen, or spreadsheets, or to do manager access, or someone's going in and granting things manually, then fail, right? You're just bound to get a hack, right? Then the next one is your SOC 2. That's your next policy,
All right.
which is so if you think, I don't know if people don't know SOC, so security operations, right? So that's like your key card. So the physical access is SOC, right? So you will walk into your office, you have an ID card, your lanyard, you scan
Mm.
it, and then you're in. There's cameras, everything's checked. You have areas that are secure, more secure than other areas, etc. So SOC 2 is basically the same thing, but now for cloud infrastructure, right?
Okay.
So now instead of the little lanyard, what you have is two-factor on your phone, right? Um, Now instead of being and then how do you micro segment
Mm-hmm.
which things I'm able to see, which things I'm not able to see, how do you manage the secrets,
Mm-hmm.
all those things as part of kind of your SOC 2. And then you have your last one, which is your data security, which is how are you actually securing your data? So if you think about it, people buy firewalls, people pay for VPNs, people pay for your PAMs and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, but how are they actually securing the databases
Mm-hmm.
and the buckets, which is like where are all the data?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, and then most people actually spend a lot of money on application security.
Yeah.
But if you look at the actual hacks, no big hack has happened on an application, right? They usually they usually hack some AD server or come in through the back or SSH or something, and they steal the data from the bucket, or they steal the data from the database files, or they steal data from the database. Slowly they siphon the data using SQL. So that's actually what you have to protect. Um, Applications are pretty much secure um, current days. So those are the kind of the three main policies to repeat. You have your
Mm-hmm.
ISO 27001, your SOC 2, and then you have your PDPA or GDPR, which we're depending on where on the planet you are,
Yeah.
your data security.
Ah, So getting up ahead with this one would be like, what is data protection versus policies? How would they do?
Yeah, so okay, so usually when people think of data protection, they only think of encryption and
Yeah,
masking. So
exactly.
that's just the beginning of it. So there are so many encryption library things and
Mm-hmm.
etc. Um, so it's kind of laughable. So usually people spend all they have all this big project on um, on encrypting the data. So I
Mm-hmm.
ask them, okay, how do I make a request to unencrypt the data to do something, right? And then they go, oh, we have to sort of like break glass and this and that. It's like, so if you're gonna so data protection is basically isn't really about just hiding the data and obfuscating the data. It's about
Mm-hmm.
having the process to hide it and unhide it, right?
All right.
On demand and audited. Who requested to see it, who approved to see it in the clear, and then when did they actually see it in the clear. So so you have the masking and the unmasking, and then you have which bits of the data you're allowed to see, which tables, which schemas, which databases, which buckets, which this, which that,
Mm-hmm.
which servers can you access. All of that is around your data protection. And then you have things like how many rows can people retrieve? How do you set the row limits? How do you stop people from selecting, a million rows from this table? Or how about even the worst? How do you find the people that are or let's say you put a limit for 1,000 rows a query,
Mm-hmm.
but then people just select 500 rows for 6 months, right? Every hour. So how do you find the slow leaks, right? So these are all the things that are actually very difficult to do if you try to do things buying traditional tools
Mm-hmm.
like Imperva and this and that and etc. Right? It gets very expensive and they still have gaps. Whereas with Mamori, our background is database security from the Quest software world, so it's all baked in. We got all your masking, row and column security across all your
Mm-hmm.
databases, and then all the workflows around how to access which what. So that's what data protection is now. There's also data protection on the application level, which is how are you a steward of
Mm-hmm.
your customers' data, and that's where you get into really in detail for your GDPR and PDPA of,
Mm-hmm.
you're a website, you record my data. Traditionally, people have been recording more than they should. So really, what you want to be doing is
Mm-hmm.
de-risking and not recording anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
The less data you store about someone, the better. Um, and then you got to have a process policies for you to go and delete data. They actually
Mm-hmm.
delete it and has a record of when it was deleted, and then how long you keep things in archive. It's all this.
Mm-hmm.
It gets very deep, very complicated, very quick in terms of how you are regulated, right?
It's
Around that.
kind of like we can work on like Active Directory services part on that level, right? It's what access we should be giving to that particular user and what access we shouldn't be giving to that particular. Is it something like that you're talking about?
Well, so well, your directory is your identities of who works for you. So
Mm-hmm.
they form the who, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so your directory, whether it's a cloud directory or an LDAP, a local LDAP, or Azure directory, that's the people that work with data. Um, and then you need an engine that says, okay, this based on whether it be an AD group or an Azure
Mm-hmm.
group or maybe just some custom roles
Mm-hmm.
within this rules engine. This is what you're allowed to access. And it's called microsegmentation. So in the networking world, in ZTNA,
Mm-hmm.
microsegmentation just says this user, based on his work profile, can access these IPs, right? Very
Mm-hmm.
simple. These ports, these IP port combinations. It's the same concept, but now for data. Based on your role and your work profile and your workload, what you're going to do on your permissions, you can access this
Mm-hmm.
database, this table, this schema, this row, this column, and see it master on master. Simple as that.
All right.
And perform
So
these operations. Right?
okay. So what the my next question would be like, are you aware about like EU data privacy policies or something like that?
Yeah, so
GDPR?
that's right.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
So
the
how
GD
is
the
it?
GDPR.
Yeah.
So
Sorry
that's a
about
little
that.
that's a little different. So that
Mm-hmm.
so that's less infrastructure, and what you
Mm-hmm.
still have to do. So infrastructure is about protecting all data, whether it's your customers' data or whether it's just your operational data or your financial data. It's just your infrastructure, right? GDPR also has it more on how you manage the consumer's data, how long you
Mm-hmm.
retain it, what do you retain, that you have to be accurate. So it used to be a long time ago, the onus was on the individual to make sure that my data was current in your system, for example, financial system, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's all flipped, right? It's the onus is on the finance company to make sure that I have your details so I can
Yeah.
send you your check. Because look, let's be honest, there was a lot of financial organizations in the 90s or 2030s who they made a lot of money just by not storing your details properly. Because you know what? I don't have to pay you if I don't have your details. It sounds ridiculous, but that is the God honest truth. Hundreds of millionaires were made because of just doing
Thing.
dodgy things or forgetting your details. And you know what? None of them got arrested. So,
Uh, So
but
how would
yeah,
you
so yeah,
differentiate? Yeah. Go ahead.
go ahead. How to
Yeah.
differentiate
You're
what?
saying something. No, you're saying something.
Oh no, I was finished with that thought.
So my question was like, how would you different? How would you find it different from from the country you're living in right now in Australia, and the policies which are implemented in the EU? So is there any difference, or is it still the same?
So everyone, well, the standards are kind of
Hmm.
global, right?
Hmm.
What you really, so I think what's localized are the fines
Hmm.
and the teeth around those breaches, right?
All right.
So I think in Europe the breaches are a bit more stricter, right? So sorry, the teeth around the laws are more heavily enforced.
Hmm.
Australia is kind of lax. The US is kind of getting there, even though you can get some pretty big fines in the US. But if you unless you're like, HIPAA compliant, or maybe you're storing credit card information in the US, it's pretty a free for all. Everyone's a cowboy there, right? And it's pretty much the same in Australia. I don't know about the rest of the world, but um, yeah, how secure do I feel, about Google with my data and all those
Hmm.
guys? It's probably already stolen in my mind. It's like, but it's so yeah, so yes, personally, I don't have my credit cards on my iPhone, for example. I just don't do that sort of stuff. I don't record my details on websites, but I know everyone that's kind of younger does,
Hmm.
right? Um, so yes, there's that's the risk that you carry. You just don't know how well these companies are protecting your data, and you know what? There's no transparency. They don't report if they've met an audit. They don't report when well, I guess now it's illegal now. If you don't
Hmm.
report a breach, they put that in, right? But yeah, there's how do you know they've been audited? How do you know they have everything? How do you know that they've implemented all 16 things when an auditors say no one has? So, right, so what do you do? Right?
Oh, we
Don't
can't
give
be
them
able
your
to do
data.
anything. We can't do anything. It's just we are just trusting them, and we are just handing over our data to
Right,
them.
that's right.
All right. So let's get ahead with the next question. So the my next question would be like, what are the main challenges people face with data privacy and security in this digital age?
Yeah, so the main challenges for like normal CISOs
Hmm.
is they're kind of pigeonholed in how they're trained and how they're kind
Hmm.
of forced and how much risk they can take with vendors is that they only have a certain amount of tool sets they can use to secure their businesses, right? And they just sort of go with what Gardner recommends, or they
Hmm.
sort of go with what Forrester recommends, and it gets very expensive. So usually they go to the board and say, "Hey, I want to implement this plan to secure everything. Here's my plan to meet all the deadlines." And then the board goes, "That's that you crazy? That's too expensive. What are we, the government? Only the government can afford to just have no budget, unlimited budget, right?" So
Yeah.
they usually have to pare back
Mm-hmm.
And that's the major challenge. The major challenge is um, you have to pick and choose which
Mm-hmm.
of the things. It's almost like you're going to war, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
have a choice. You have a helmet, you
Mm-hmm.
have your body armor, you have a rifle, you have a handgun, you got boots. But then they say, no, no, that's too much money. You can only have two of those things. So what do you take, right? No matter what you pick,
Yeah.
you're wrong, right? No matter what you pick. Okay, at least you take the gun, but having boots is pretty important, and having a helmet's pretty important. So it's like, that's
Even the
right.
gear, even the vest.
Yeah, so that's right. So I think the challenge, what is the challenge? What is it hard? It's not that there isn't technology to solve the
Mm-hmm.
problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's that it's cost prohibitive to solve the problem, right? So that's really the problem we're trying to solve. Is hey, here's a low cost solution. You can just use it if you're a small business. It's free. Just grab it, start using it, um, and hopefully less people will get hacked. Right? Simple as that.
Uh-huh. So let's get ahead with the next one. Would be how has the threat landscape evolved in the recent years, and what are the emerging threats to data?
Okay, so the threat landscape has definitely changed,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a couple of compelling events
Mm-hmm.
that have caused it to change. Um, the first one is there is now a market for
Mm-hmm.
selling partials of hacks. So before, 20 years ago, if I
Mm-hmm.
stole some data from your business, what would I do with it? Who would I give it
Nothing.
to? And how would they pay me for it? Right? Whereas now I can steal some data, I can go to the dark web, I can sell it, and I can get
Oh,
paid in some Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency, and I've made money, right? And which means I can steal from my work, and I can happily make some extra money from the side. I don't need to ask my boss for a raise. I can give myself a raise by stealing my company's data and selling it on the dark web. Simple as that. So it's so much easier now to sell and make money um, from things. I can now. There's all this AI bots. There's so the scripts were pretty simple before.
mm-hmm.
Now I can. There's all these bots, and they're getting so much better. I could leave a bots running. I can go to the beach, go surfing, I can go with my friends, drink some beer, go to the pub, and I get look at my phone. Oh, my bots found some stuff. Here you go. And this just the stuff, and then I don't have to hack. I don't have to use that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I can just sell what my bots find to people. I can sell them, you know, good IP addresses, good ports that they can go and attack. So
Oh,
what's changed the landscape is that it's um uh it's made you can make money,
mm-hmm.
small amounts of money, right? So not all hacks are these $1 million hacks. I can make hacks 4 grand, 5 grand, 7 grand, you know. So and then what makes it really easy is what the auditors say. No one has done the 16 things. Right? So everyone has a gap. So you're bound to find. So it's like shooting turkeys at a turkey farm. You can put on the blindfold and you start shooting, and you're bound to get some. It is that good, and that's why there's so many hackers. It is just too lucrative. Business people are just too dumb. Simple as that. They're just getting hacked.
okay. Uh, uh, so, what are the biggest concerns for individuals and business regarding data privacy and security breaches?
Well, okay, depends on the business that you are. So the biggest concerns now, and
Mm-hmm.
this is stats now, right? If
Uh,
you're a services company,
mm-hmm.
right? For example, India's got a lot of services company, and this is
Mm-hmm.
now statistics. If you get hacked and you're a services company, you're out of business,
Boom.
right? And this so basically, hackers are hacking a lot of services companies. Why? Because services companies have all the credentials to their clients. Other clients give them VPN connections, passwords, login, SSH here. So
Mm-hmm.
why bother hacking 1,000 companies? I could hack one company that has connections to 1,000, hack them, and steal all that credential information, and I'm good. I'm an employee at that services company. I have access to all these credentials.
Ah.
I can now sell those credentials. I can give myself a raise. My wife needs a new ring. I want to go on vacation. My boss won't give me a raise. I just sell that stuff. I can get some Bitcoin. It's just that it's too easy. And and they put it on spreadsheets. They have
Mm,
things on, they put VPN details in wikis and Confluence. Everyone knows. It's like that's what they do, right? Um, so yeah, this is the concern. The concern is it is just too easy to be hacked, and it's too lucrative. So that's why everyone's getting hacked, and that's why we're talking right now, because cybersecurity is an issue. It's a simple problem to solve. Just stop buying security in pieces. When you buy a car,
mm,
right? You don't say, no, no, I want to buy my safety features in pieces. Don't, please. I don't want airbags. I don't want brakes. I want to get my brakes from this guy and my
mhm,
airbags from that. No, no one's going to sell you a car that way. But why? Because the government says this is all the safety features minimum that a car should have.
mhm,
You buy the car, you don't have a choice. You can't take off the airbags, you can't take off the brakes, you can't take off the power. You can't buy a car without, and that's how software should be. You shouldn't be
mhm,
able to buy security in little pieces so then you can screw it up. You should just get, this is how you do it, and that's it. It should be a no-brainer. And
uh,
that's the only way to solve the problem. Right?
so basically, you mean like you should buy everything in a one package rather than getting it in a bits and pieces.
Look, get the bits. So sometimes you love the bits and pieces that you love, but if you're
Mhm,
gonna buy it in bits and pieces, at least get something to cover the gaps. Don't
yeah.
run naked. Do you see people walking out of their house without underwear, and it's like just socks? That's what businesses are doing, right? They're putting on a shirt, forgetting the pants, and then walking around saying, "Hey, I'm protected." No, you're not, dude. You're missing your pants. You're missing your underwear. I love your socks, by the way. Great socks, right? But it's like that's exactly what business. And then it's funny, but you know what? Every time someone gets hacked, I laugh because that's what I see. I look at so many Australian government agencies have been hacked, right? They spent billions of dollars on the sub. They got all these geniuses, cyber security
Mhm.
guys trying to protect themselves for China that can't even protect themselves from some guy in Nigeria. But give me a break. It's like, how hard is it to implement your own policies, right? It's like, come on.
Uh,
How hard is it?
uh. So
Yes.
we can go for the analogy like attacker got attacked, the hunter got hunted.
The hunter, yeah, he's running. The hunter forgot to put his pants on. It's like, what are you doing? Yes.
So
Yeah,
let's get
well, that's right. So it's almost like, in sports, you always focus on the basics, you know. And when you read the policies that have been defined
Mhm,
the policies, they haven't changed a lot, but just no one has implemented them. It's 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 they say the same thing, you know. I'll give you an example. Perfect example. Two-factor everything. The policy will say just the policy will say like verify access to everything, right? Which modern day means just two-factor everything. You have a
hmm,
credential and you have a second factor to ensure that it's them. You know what people do? Typically, the CEO will go and say, okay, CISO, I need to two-factor. Let's at least
mhm,
two-factor everything. CISO will go and say, okay, I don't know, Okta Duo. Let me buy Okta Duo. I get Okta and Duo. Great, done. We've two-factored everything. No, they've two-factored applications. Maybe they've two-factored their SSH. But you know what? People are connecting to databases, and they have no two-factor. So it's like they two-factor the app, the thing that no one hacks, and they forget to two-factor the database, the thing that everyone steals from. Or how about just two-factoring your routers and your switches?
hmm,
So, for example, the modern 2FA things, they're great if you have SAML and OAuth and OID.
mhm,
But what about your old applications that don't? What about your router that it's just a web service? It's like, right? So the policy is simple: two-factor everything. The business goes and buy a two-factor solution that
mhm,
doesn't do everything. But if the business owner thinks solve the problem. And that's the sad that's
All
the
right.
sad part of the story right there. It doesn't do everything. So that's what Modi's trying to do is, we have a 2FA solution that integrates with Okta and Duo.
Mm-hmm.
So if you love Okta and Duo, great. But we can trigger a 2FA for everything. We could even 2FA a printer. You wanna your machine tries to access a printer, we will trigger your 2FA. So if you want to 2FA everything, we can 2FA anything with an IP address, right?
Well, that's
So
amazing.
so, so that's what I mean. So we look at the problem holistically,
Mm-hmm.
and we try to solve the problem of the based on the policy. So it's very different. It's almost like when you go to a doctor, and a particular doctor only looks at the medicines that you do your blood, and then it's okay, you need this drug. Or you go to a doctor and says, "Hey, how is your diet? What are you eating? How much do you exercise?" They look at your body. Are you stressed? They try to find out how you're,
Mm-hmm.
like a holistic medicine. So that's what I think is kind of missing in the security space, because security is sold in
Mm-hmm.
pieces, right? That's the problem.
Okay, that's amazing. So speaking of that one, so as we can see, there are like what I can go for, like there are like a lot of innovative technologies which are coming up. So I would like to know what exactly are those technologies which are being used to develop and to improve data privacy and security.
Yep. So to be able to meet those 16 things, what technologies do we have to innovate, right? So you have a series of proxy technologies
Mm-hmm.
that you can sit in front of applications and databases that then can implement the policies that you need without
Uh-huh.
having to change. The big issue is if you have like 1,000 databases and 1,000 applications, you can't be going and making 1,000 integrations and 1,000 changes.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be there for 3 years. You want to be able to roll something out in
Mm-hmm.
like 30 days, 60 days, right? Something easy. So the only way to do that is to have some transparent proxies. That's an innovation that's there in the market now that you can use to protect your databases and your application servers and mass data, control operations, whatever policy you want to do, they can implement. Right? Um, then the other thing you have the is a packaging innovation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's this packaging innovation is putting in all of these disparate sort of security features into one kind of suite that then you can use. So you have so for example, a ZTNA solution. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
It's actually comprised of, fine, you have your VPN solution, your microsegmentation, your
Mm-hmm.
intrusion detection, and your 2FA. Those are kind of
Ah,
the key features of a ZTNA solution, right? So the innovation is less about, the technology per se, but it's about how it's packaged. It's all together. So when you have your ZTNA solution with your PAM, with your DBPAM, with
mm-hmm.
your workflow all together, you know what else happens? You get a SIM for free. You get this, all the traffic is flowing through. You can see, so when you want to track who's doing what, you have your HTTP, your SSH, your RDP, your TCP, all your traffic in one spot without having to
Mm-hmm.
go and spend $3 million building a security data lake. It's like, it's already in one spot, right? So the innovation is more of a packaging innovation,
Mm-hmm.
and then you do have some technology innovations like the proxies. You do have some technology innovation around just sort of AI based around finding patterns and making it easier so you don't get
Mm-hmm.
a million alerts, um, that you don't listen to the system anymore. So those are the things that are kind of there for security. The
Mm-hmm.
the industries that are better making use of this is actually, so you've heard of IT, right? Because but it's really the OT, so operational infrastructure. So this is your water treatment plants, your machinery, things that didn't really buy a lot of software from a security perspective. Many of these places don't even have domain controllers, right? It's
Okay.
literally it's a plant. The plant is closed. No one can get in there except for like twice a month, right? Because it's super secure, and you walk in, this and that. But if if a hacker somehow manages to get into one of these things and messes with a sensor, it could blow up the whole plant. right? And then your whole city loses power, right? So how do you protect that infrastructure, but it's
Mhm.
very archaic, right? This is what we do, because our solution just works at any level, whether TCP or HTTP. We can, without going and doing a big
Mhm.
spend
Mhm.
on upgrading everything to modern, we can implement the same policies, and that's the
Okay.
goal, right? Implement the simple policies, that it's the simple requirements without doing a big lift in spend, right, for that business. So yeah, so that's kind of the innovations. It's how do you solve the problem without making that big business or that
Mhm.
business spend so much money or so much time? Because um, if you want to be secure, it's almost like when you fall in love, right? When you meet the person you love, you want the rest of your life to start today, as soon as possible, right?
Yeah.
So what you don't want is someone to say, okay, we can secure you, but it's a 12-month, 16-month, 18-month, 24-month rollout. Because then you're like, well, what do I do for 24 months? It's almost like, hey, imagine if the girl you like likes you, or your partner says, I love you too, but you know what? Let's talk in 24 months. It's like, no, you want to start it now. It's like, can we just, I want to be secure now. I want to go to the beach. Let's go. Yeah.
All right. So let's get ahead with the next one. So this one will be like, how can individuals and businesses take better control of their own data and protect it from getting misused?
So, so there's a concept of least privileges,
Hmm.
right? So typically, so this is the pattern. This is the anti-pattern that businesses fall into, because they provision access manually. It's a lot of work. Let's say someone's hired, so the manager goes, "Okay, I have a new hire," and he goes, "I need to give him access." And then you go to the IT guy, "Okay, give him access. Give
Mhm.
Fred access. What do you want to give him access? Give him access to everything. He's a developer. He needs to work. He needs to work on
Boom.
this application. Just give him access to his application, because it's too much work to be constantly coming to the
Mhm.
IT guy. Can you give him access to this now? Give him access to that. Now take away this act. It's just too much work. So what do? Humans, we over provision, right? So we over provision the access because that's the easy thing, because humans don't like to be bothered. That's human nature, right? So we over provision access, right, to everything. That's what happens when you don't have an automated system. What should happen is um, no one has access to anything.
Okay.
No one should have access to anything. You should only have access to request access for the things based on your role. So as a developer, and then we'll use a simple one. In AD, I'm marked as a developer, which means
Mhm.
I can request access to these 10 applications.
Mhm.
And those 10 applications have infrastructure, right? So I should be able to go to a system and say, okay, I need to work on this application for the next 3 months or whatever, a week or whatever, right? So I'm putting a request, then the manager approves it, and the
Mhm.
moment he approves it, I get the access. No IT involvement.
Mhm.
That's the way it should work, right? So that's the beginning of how to get more control of your data, because then so it's not just about the data, because remember, it's where the data lives. Because when
Mhm.
people steal stuff, they break into your house and steal your gold. So we're not talking about gold security. We're talking about home security,
Open
right? Because if
security.
they can't break, right, you know what I mean. So it's like you need to protect your servers. You need to protect the database, because that's where the data is, right? Yeah. So if that's why I said at the very beginning, the most important policy, the most important compliance thing is the ISO 27001A9.
Mhm.
It's your access management. You need to automate it. If you're gonna spend money, that's what you gotta spend it on. Because if you spend money on anything else, in fact, you could buy everything else, but if you don't automate the access,
Mhm.
you're gonna get hacked.
It's boom.
Guaranteed.
Kaboom.
Because because this is what happens at every business, right? The
Mhm.
IT guy who's doing the work, they said there's 200 people at this company, or there's 1,000 or 10, even for 10,000, it's a team of people.
Mhm.
All they spend is 80% of their time is babysitting accounts. And what do? Every week they got to generate a report. Who should have access to what? This person, do you still need access? And they have this account has been inactive for 30 days. Do you need it? It's all the same stuff, right? So anyone who's ever worked in IT, who manages accounts, understands this pain. It's just a big waste of time. And in IT people, what they should be doing SecOps work, which is actually building honeypots. They
Ah.
should be doing, because because the business spends so much time babysitting access that the IT guys have no time to actually be doing security work. They should, because it takes time to build honeypots and track it and this and that and implement to try to hack. I want to find the people trying. I'm going to release some juicy data to see who steals it so I can catch them. But they don't have no time. So really, it's all like when I talk to business, I say, look, your
Mhm.
first strategy is to actually free up the time of your admin staff
Mhm.
by implementing something as simple as we can, so then they can have time to actually implement security, you
Mhm.
know, do proper security SecOps stuff. Yeah.
Right. So speaking of that, and we did talk about government previously as well, how much the government is involved. So this question is like, what role can governments and organizations play in creating more secure digital environment?
So, I mean, the goal of government is to actually government plays kind of twofold, right? One
Mhm.
is people listen to government, right? So
Mhm.
government does do recommendations and um, they recommend things. Hey, this is what you should do. So governments are they're already doing that. So I think governments are kind of doing an okay job of saying, hey, these are the recommendations that people are recommending. We should follow them. Now it gets very tricky for government because governments don't want to be seen biased as we're saying, hey, just use this, right? So they're kind of not allowed to kind of do that. They have to kind of be sort of a you know hands off or at arm's length in terms of the recommendations. um, but what governments can do is actually hold, more events, raise awareness, educate people, um, at least to know when should it matter to you as a business, right? So a lot of business people don't know that they should care. That's the first question. Am I should I care is about cybersecurity? Should I listen to Omar? Should I have a look at Mamori? Right? So I will play that role of government right now. Let's say you're a small business and you're 100% cloud. You use your cloud service like Salesforce.com to do your CRM. Use cloud services to manage your clients and your data. You yourself don't have any infrastructure at all, right? You use Gmail for your email, right? So basically, everything is cloud services. Right? If you just go in 2FA, make sure you have 2FA and all those things, you're pretty much done. There's not much more you can do. You don't have to listen to us. You can go to the beach and have some beers, right? You're good. Now, the moment you have um, some infrastructure, or you build an app, or you have your own database of something, or have file shares or buckets of this and that, then now you need to listen. Now you need to implement the 16 things, the things that apply, right? You have no choice, right? Yeah. Oop, I think I lost your volume.
Oh, sorry. All right, cool. Sorry, my bad.
Now you're
Okay.
back.
Yeah, I'm back. So speaking about that one, so gazing into digital unknown, so how will our evolving landscape of technologies and regulation reshape the battleground, means as in we can say of data privacy and security in the many more years to come?
So what's gonna well, it's the government has started like 4 or 5 years ago. They tried to implement stricter fines,
Hmm.
but then kind of COVID happened and they kind of backed off. Because really, the only thing that changes behavior is
Hmm.
fines, right? It's the only incentive. Let's put that. I'll Because when you look at if you study behavioral economics, right,
Hmm.
it's all incentives. What incentive does a business owner have to do anything? He's already making money. Like I said, security is a tax. It's not like in his mind he's got to pay extra, right?
Okay.
If hackers didn't exist, he wouldn't have to worry about this, and he wouldn't have to spend this money. So this is
Mhm.
a cost in his mind, right? So what's his incentive? What incentive
Mm,
does he have to do anything? So this
nothing.
is the problem the government has, right? So until the government says if you get hacked, right, you will have to pay a fine of 2-3% of your revenue. Then the guy's like, whoa, that's a big risk, right? So I will spend, then I can justify the spend, right? It's almost like speeding. Your speeding tickets has to be big enough to keep you from speeding again and again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. So government only has a few levers. They can do recommendations and they can put some teeth on the regulators, to make businesses, give them a negative incentive, right? They have an incentive to do something, because otherwise humans won't do anything unless they have an incentive to do it, right? Whether it be
Mm-hmm.
positive or negative, right? Now, something that when most people don't realize, and it's best to say it now, there is an economic benefit to actually implementing an all-in-one solution that automates stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because let's put it this way: when you look at, and this comes from like PwC and Accenture and all the big services firms,
Mm-hmm.
20% of the cost of almost every project and time and money is just around the access. I used to do services. I remember you go to a firm. I remember there's a new project starts, right? What happens? Oh, the first week. Oh, the first week is the easy week. They're gonna just, I have to get access to the database. It's gonna take them like 2 weeks just to give me access. I can I can build them for 2 weeks, and when I can work on someone else's stuff, right? Honestly,
Mm-hmm.
that's just the truth, right? So what business people don't realize is, hey, if you had a system that made access easier, so the solution, Mamori itself, is a productivity tool.
Mm-hmm.
Not only does it keep you, so the best security is security that you don't know is there and it's easy to implement, but actually makes you more productive. So that's really the goal of Mamori, is to make people more productive in terms of, it doesn't take ages to get access to stuff. You don't need to remember 50 passwords, because you only ever use one password, which is your AD login, to get into everything, right? So it's just simple things like that make the business more productive. Then it's kind of generates growth, right? You're saving 20-30% in all your projects now. It's pretty good.
So speaking of that, uh, what are the ethical and social implications of increasing data collection and analysis?
So you mean increasing data collection, like when you go to a site and they track? I mean,
Yeah, that
so
like.
so businesses can't. Okay, so I'm going to flip that question, because a business can't increase their data collection. I think what humans are doing is we're increasing our data giving, right? Right? We're more willingly giving. You know, we it's if we didn't go and people didn't go take Instagrams of my muscles and where I bought my shoes and where are the this, and I'm constantly on my phone and tweeting and this and wherever I am on the planet, and
Mm-hmm.
my favorite pretzel, my favorite coffee. um I mean, these things are recording everything we say, right? So they can say, oh, I love this coffee. How
Mm-hmm.
many times has Siri, or I forget the Android one, you don't
It's
know it's on, and then
there.
you're talking with your friends, and but your phone actually, it thinks you're talking to it, and it has your whole conversation for the past 5 minutes. Your phone has it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So so yes, the companies are recording everything, but you know what, we're we're letting them. I mean, no one's asking us to leave it on, right? So yeah, so should we put stricter requirements on
Mm-hmm.
these companies that collect our data? um, should we is there should we be able to say, hey, if you're going to make money off my data, you got to give me some, right? It's like it's like
Well, that would
here
be
you
crazy.
are
That.
here. Well, I mean, think about it. They're making all this money off our data.
Mm.
Where's our cut? It's like, should you be able to say, if you want to have, Siddharth's data, where's my data? I want to know where all my data is, and then I want to be able to say who can have it. No, I don't want
Mhm.
you to sell it. So I believe, yes, I think we should have more control. But you know what? There's no unless there's no financial incentive. So
Mhm.
the people who collect the data will not do it because they're nice,
Mhm.
which means the only way it's going to happen is if either the governments enforce it, or we boycott everything and say No, but that's never going to happen, is it? So again, it's all behavioral economics. Yeah. So you have to create the incentive. So unless the government enforces it, or we boycott, or there's a new social media company that does it, and everyone switches to them, and they become the new billionaire, right?
Boom.
Because they do this, right? It's got to be. So there has to be an incentive.
Alright. So moving ahead with this one, how can we work towards a future where everyone has access to the benefits of technology without compromising that personal data? It's with the continuation with the previous question itself. Means we can go ahead with that one itself. So as you said that means how can we can work on a personal basis towards the future where where each and every individual has access to his own data, and he
Yes.
can share it without what we can say
Yeah. So
compromising the
yeah,
personal data.
yeah. So there's already a model for it. So
Mm-hmm.
1999, early late 90s, 2000, you used to go to websites, and every website you put in your credit card details. Remember that? You was everyone was like, you put in all your credit card details in every website,
Yeah.
and then someone came up with something called PayPal. You put your credit card details only in PayPal, and then you just use PayPal. So the no one had your credit card details except for PayPal. Well,
Elon
it's the
Musk.
same concept. It's the same concept. It's the same concept, but now
Mm-hmm.
for your personal information, for your medical information. Why can't we just say, here's all my stuff, and I'm not going to give you details to nobody.
Mm-hmm.
You just give them the equivalent of PayPal, but for your personal information.
Mm-hmm.
So then when any business wants any information on you, they have to request it from this service. No one's made that service. I think people have tried to do like identity vaults, and it's been tried. Um, but if you think about it, right, think about like yourself in adults. You have the water company, the light company, the gas company, a couple of websites that you buy stuff from, Netflix. Just even just in your streaming, how many online services have you put your email and your name in, right? Just to watch your TV shows, right? 5 or 6, right? Since COVID. So now you have 10 companies that know you, and then Google and Apple definitely know you, right? So that's 12, right? But there could be one, and then they share
Mm-hmm.
it, right? So that's the only secure way
Mm-hmm.
of having your data and
Mm-hmm.
participating in the economy, the global
Mm-hmm.
economy, digital economy, and not being, you know, worrying about
Okay.
getting stolen, right? Your identity stolen.
Okay. So speaking of that one, can you share your any personal experience or any personal experience that illustrate the importance of data privacy? Got any personal experience? Means you have been into industry for a very long time, so you might be able to, you might have a lot of experiences, a lot of things which have been going through.
Yeah, I mean, so there's nothing worse than identity theft, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so I'll just give some expensive things that commonly happen in the U.S. Imagine you have your house,
Mm-hmm.
sorry,
It's okay.
but then you have like a beach property, but it's like in a different state. You have
Mm-hmm.
some land in a different state, and every year you pay tax on that property.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then one year the tax bill doesn't come. You're like, oh, that's interesting. No tax. Hey, nice. So you don't pay tax that year,
Mm-hmm.
which is good. So you don't say anything. They don't say anything. You don't say anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the next year you don't get a tax bill again. Then you go, okay, something's wrong. Where's my tax bill? All right. Well, it turns out someone has sold your land, and they built a house on it. This is a common problem in the U.S., right? So someone using your identity went and created legal documents, and they sold your property and they to someone else, and they built a house on it, and you got no legal recourse.
Okay.
What do you
Uh,
do?
Nothing. Can't
So
do anything.
can't do anything. That's right. And it's all above board. They go do it in some consulate in Europe, right? Where
Hmm.
it transfers there, and it's all done. So the buyer will be somewhere in Europe, and it's done in the consulate there, and it's all good.
So is there anything similar happened in Australia? Means you have been in Australia way long as well. So is there anything which
So
similar incident happened up?
so in Australia, I haven't seen like a lot of identity thefts like
Hmm.
that. But here, just ransomware attacks.
Hmm.
A lot of small businesses, a lot of yeah, just ransomware attacks happen a lot. They charge between 5 to 20,000 to get the encryption, to get the data decrypted. So,
That's pretty
and
lot
the
amount.
sad thing is, it's yeah. So the sad thing is, it's usually mid-sized companies that only really have an IT department,
Hmm.
right? Usually, the IT department is a consultant. He comes in, every so often, um, and because one, they don't think that they're at risk.
Hmm.
They didn't really put that much thought in protecting anything. Um, yeah, and the protection they would have needed is like so small that they could have avoided the whole thing. So,
Hmm.
um, yep.
All right.
But that's why I said, for small businesses, 20, 30 staff, Mamodi's free. You can just download it and start using it. There's no need to run naked. There's no need to get hacked. You can stop getting hacked.
All right. So this will be a second last question of today's podcast. So, what advice would you like to give to the listeners who are concerned about their online privacy and data privacy itself?
What was the question? What should
As
I
I was like,
tell?
what advice would you like to give to the listeners who are concerned about their online privacy and security?
Yeah, so well, I guess for online privacy, um, it's very tricky. So if you're young, obviously you're fully bought in, right? Your
Hmm.
whole life is on your device, right? Um, so yeah, just be careful what you buy, really, right?
Hmm.
And be careful who you kiss, because they can come and you laugh, right? But a lot of social engineering, you know,
They
you
do
look,
this.
you're a guy, you work at a big services firm, you're at a club. The hackers, the cute girls, that could be a hacker. They know you work at a services firm, and they will are more than happy to
Oh.
try to steal your credentials. So if that girl is too cute to be talking to you, maybe she's a hacker,
Well, that was pretty
Yeah,
crazy one. All right.
you, you got to be careful.
Yeah. All
Look,
right.
it's out of a tangent, but yeah, yes. I mean, be careful where you put your data. I mean, I'm not a big social media user, so
Hmm.
I can't really give advice on that. But I typically, for example, never a typical security guy.
Hmm.
Always have my camera turned off, and um, you know, it sounds really bad, but just don't go to dodgy sites on your work laptop.
Hmm.
I don't know how many cases in everywhere I've been in. I've worked in Europe, in Australia, in the US, where people just should not be looking at those things on their work laptop and getting their machines infected. Right? It's embarrassing for you, and it's just bad for the company. That's another big advice. Just don't get another laptop. Get another laptop. Or get a bigger phone,
A tablet would do.
Get a tablet, that's right.
Better way. Better way. All right. So that sums up. So before closing it up, so I would like to ask about the closing remarks about today's podcast. How did you feel? And how was your experience? And how would you quote up any closing remarks for my listeners?
Well, I hope they found it a bit entertaining, because security is a pretty boring topic. And um, and I think the important thing going forward in the cybersecurity world, there isn't really a silver bullet, right? There
Hmm.
isn't really like one feature. There's no magical front door that you can buy in your business, right? You just have to implement all of the 16 things. And if you go to the website, they're all there. Mamori.io. You can download the product and start using it. It's free to try. We're not gonna chase you down and crazy and
Mhm.
try to sell you stuff. Um, but there's no need to run naked on cybersecurity anymore. So it's every single feature that's kind of needed there, recommended by all global institutions. They're all there. So you can start using it straight away.
Okay, cool. And speaking of that, I'll be putting up a link in the description so that even you can have access to it, and you can have a look what memory does it, what exactly you can. I'll put up the LinkedIn link of Omar as well. You can connect him over there as well. Right.
Okay.
All right. So
It's good talking to you.
that sums up the episode, and thank you.